Hello, students. This is again management accounting class. As you know, we've already covered one of the main areas of management accounting this time, which was divisional performance. If you remember, divisional performance class that we covered in detail, and then we did transfer pricing and EVA in detail as well. So the whole thing is basically called the divisional performance of an organization, which includes different techniques to measure the performance of different divisions in an organization, right? So if you remember that I made three different organizations here, A, B, and C, and we saw in detail how to measure managers and division performance, and we saw the techniques to calculate the different financial ratios which covers divisional performance, right? And just to quickly recap our last class so that we can move on today, we saw transfer pricing and EVA. EVA was economic value added, which was similar to residual income as explained previously. And then we saw transfer pricing, how the transfer pricing is conducted between different divisions and divisions in the same country or different countries maybe, and we saw the different rules of transfer pricing and types of transfer pricing. Just a recap if you remember. So today we will be recapping again one of the concepts that we've already done before so many times that I'm not going to go into detail of the concept, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly recap the concept with you guys so that we are able to do a detailed past paper question on it. Why did I choose NPV and IRR to do the question with you guys was because this time around, as you know, I always give you a trend analysis of what I expect the examiner to give you in the examination in management accounting. So this time around, I feel that management accounting will consist a lot of questions on divisional performance and NPV and IRR. Again, it is a part of divisional performance, obviously, because it measures the performance of different divisions and projects of the organization, right? So we're going to do a comprehensive question on NPV and IRR. Now, the question is a bit technical. Why? The question that I selected because it is not a normal NPV IRR question, and the biggest advantage of this is that it actually covers the whole of the area of NPV IRR and all the discounted and the non-discounted techniques. So if you could see that I've prepared a working paper right in front of you so that we can go through it easily, and I have also tried to solve the question which I'm going to go through with you together with it, right? So coming on to NPV and IRR, if you could see my screen clearly, I think you all can because I'm sharing my screen with you guys on Google Hangout. So non-discounted technique. Non-discounted technique is a technique that doesn't use the discount rate. I know all of you know what the discount rate is by now. You've all grown up with discount rates if you've taken accounting in your A-levels and your first year. The non-discounted technique are two kinds. We have the payback method, we have the accounting rate of return. What is the payback method? The payback method actually explains when your investment will be recovered by you at what time period, right? So it is a very simple method, yet it is the method that is mostly applied by the organizations, and it is widespread. Why? Because it's a very easy technique in which the investors actually can identify easily without any detailed calculations that at what time period their investment will be returned to them, right? We have a whole detailed calculation of a payback method which you've already done with me before. Moving on to accounting rate of return, I'm going to recap the formula for it because many of you I know jumble it up with IRR. So accounting rate of return again is a non-discounted technique, and the formula is we use average profits divided by average investment. So what average profits are? Average profits are actually cash flows, which are your net cash flows, minus your non-cash expenses divided by the number of years. Now, usually when you're doing NPV and IRR, you're basically calculating the net cash flows, which does not involve any non-cash expenses such as provisions or depreciation. expenses such as that. So usually students mess up accounting rate of return because they forget that the formula says profits, not cash flows. So I'm going to again repeat that accounting rate of return uses profits instead of cash flows. So you have to adjust your cash flows to your profits and divided by the number of years of the trading or the investment or the project to calculate the average profits. And divided by average investment. Average investment means what was your investment at the beginning of the period versus what was the residual value, your value that was left at the end of the period, obviously after depreciating, maybe, because if you are investing for a plant and machinery, so you would be calculating what value is left. So your opening investment plus its residual value divided by 2 gives you the average investment. Now, what's the basic, why do we calculate accounting rate of return? The major reason for calculating this is to actually identify whether your project is gives you a better rate than the discount rate or the prevailing rate, which is known as the cost of capital. So cost of capital is the cost of the overall project, is the cost of your financing of the project. So if your overall project gives you a better profitability as compared to its cost that was taken to actually finance it, that means that your project is good to go and you can invest in it. But if the accounting rate of return gives you the percentage below the cost of capital, then it's better to forego the project. Coming to the discounted technique, the discounted technique uses the discount rate method, which is also known as the cost of capital. Because it's called the discounted technique, you all know that only two areas, NPV and IRR, use the discount rate as a method to judge whether the project is feasible or not. So basically the whole of the NPV and IRR and these are called the capital investment techniques. So I'm just going to write it down. Capital investment techniques. So these techniques basically, these techniques are actually there to identify whether your project are feasible or not, and whether you should carry on with it or not, and whether you should invest in it or not, right? So these are the techniques that actually explain to you whether you should go ahead with the overall organizational objective or to achieve the goal of the organization. Alright, NPV, we all know what NPV is. It is based on cash flows. NPV is the present value of your net cash flows using the discount rate factor, and you calculate the sum of the present value at each year to calculate the NPV. I'm going to recap IRR because, again, like accounting rate of return, most of you always mess up with the IRR formula. IRR, what is the logic behind IRR? Basically, IRR is known as a hidden trial error. Hidden trial method, not error, my bad. So it is a hidden trial method. Why? Because the IRR actually is an internal rate of return that is given to you at the point where NPV is equal to 0. So since we cannot actually calculate directly where NPV goes to 0, so what do? We use a hidden trial method. A hidden trial method is that we calculate the NPV at two discount rates. So if you have your own discount rate or the cost of capital that is given to you in a question, which is, let's suppose, 10% here, we will increase the percentage of discount rate and calculate another NPV at a higher percentage. Now, why do we do that? If your NPV1 is positive at 10%, that means that as you keep on increasing the discount rate, your NPV will start decreasing. As your cost goes up, your net present value of the cash flows starts going down. So there's going to be a value in between 10% to 20% that NPV goes to 0, right? So if you keep increasing, I'm going to write it down, the discount rate, then somewhere between 10% to 20% is a percentage where the NPV goes to 0. So our highlighting factor of IRR is where NPV is equal to 0. So how do we actually calculate this? The formula for IRR is written down here. I'm going to say IRR equals to, so IRR equals to the discount rate 1, that means 10%, plus NPV 1, which is the NPV at 10%, divided by NPV 1 plus NPV 2 into discount rate 2, which is 20%, minus discount rate 1. Now if you see that I have made a mod sign with NPV2, that is because since you have increased the discount rate, your NPV2 is bound to be negative, because we're finding the NPV where it turns from positive to negative. So we are going to try and calculate, we're going to try to calculate the NPV where it becomes 0. So we're going to have a mod here because NPV2 is negative. So we're going to, the formula for IRR wants to make it positive. So do remember, one of the biggest mistake that students do in calculating IRR is they forget the mod sign, due to which their IRR is usually wrong, right? So this is a very important point that we need to focus and emphasize here. So this is basically a quick recap on the overall NPV, IRR, payback method and accounting rate of return, which are also known as the capital investment techniques or capital appraisal techniques, right? Alright, so the question that we're going to do today is a question of 2015 Zone A, which is a Copeland question. So I would request you all to please take out your question so that we can actually discuss why this question is different than other questions, and why I'm focusing on this question with you guys, because I think that this question, there is a high probability that a question similar like this might be tested in your exam. And because as the capital investment technique is a very simple, it's a very good, it's a chapter that is not so technical. So I want you guys to be able to at least score from one of the questions appropriately, so that you have at least one question in hand that you know that you can do well. Since management accounting, we all know, is very tricky and is one of the most difficult papers in EMFSS, accounting and finance, and no one can actually forego this paper because it's a compulsory course. So out of the 6 questions in section A, one of the questions is asked about divisional performance. And this time what my with my experience is that I think that the question regarding capital appraisal investment technique in a technical way might be questioned, right? All right, so I'm going to also look for the question myself so that we can read through it and you guys can actually read through with me. So let me just get my mock. No, sorry, it's a past paper. So 2015 Zone A. It's a Copeland question. So I think it's a question number. Yeah, so it's question number 4, Copeland American Hotels, right? So I think you all have the question in front of you. If you could all have the question in front of you, I want you all to read the question in detail first by yourselves, and then I'm going to read it with you, and then we can solve it together, right? So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to read through the question, right, in front of you, and keep the question in front of you, and then we can read it together, and I'm going to highlight the important points in this question paper which you might have picked up or which you might have not, right? So the difference is that I want you to also actually know how to understand a question and how to pick up technical points, or you could say tricky points, that the examiner must have fit into the question that you might have skipped in reading the question yourself. So the purpose of today's class is, again, not only practice. I want you to understand how to find the trick in the question which the examiner actually puts in, so that you may be able to do the question in a better and appropriate way, right? So please take 5 minutes and then we can continue with the question. Alright, so whenever you have a question in front of you, as I've explained in the class as well, and I'm going to repeat it today, that the key is that you've all also questioned me that ma'am, the difficulty in attempting the mock or the midterm of management accounting is we don't understand what question to do because the question are so lengthy. As you can see, it's like almost a 2-page, a 3-page question in management accounting. So the answer to your question is how to actually select the question. So because you have 15 minutes, your paper is 3 hours 15 minutes. So the 15 minutes that you have is to quickly read through the first 6 questions of section A, which are the key area, which is the key of the examination and the key area where you gain your marks. So how to choose between it? The key is go directly to the requirement. So what I want you all to do is please read the requirement first. Don't dive into the question or don't get scared or afraid by seeing, oh my god, it's a 2-page question, I can't do that. No, don't do that. Maybe it's a 2-page question, but half of it is filled with half of it is in a tabular form, right, or is in a graphical form. So never get scared of questions in management accounting. Just relax yourselves and take a deep breath and then start reading the requirement. Now the requirement says, calculate the annual depreciation charge and the project written down value of the site at the end of 10 years of trading. Right? If we go further, we can see, okay, so approximate payback time is needed in one of the parts. ARR, which is accounting rate of return, is needed. And then the question then comes to cost of capital and NPV. Oh, it's a capital appraisal question. It demands payback, accounting rate of return and NPV, which we've already done. So now let's start with the question. So Copeland is a hotel group and wishes to have a hotel in all major North American cities. The Copeland development director has found a disused office block in Toronto on a prominent site. He estimates that this can be converted into an attractive 200-room hotel. So I'm going to highlight this area. So this thing might be important to us later on. So if they've mentioned that it's a 200-room hotel, that means that there's something will come in the in the future, in the question and forward, relating to this relating to this point. So hotel in 3 years. The purchase price of the office block is 40 million. Okay. Negotiating the sale, obtaining planning consents and detailed work will occupy the first year. Now, a lot of students get confused that if the purchase price is 40 million, right, why is a portion of the design work coming in the first year? Annual cost of further 2 million. Installing major services will occupy the second year. Annual cost 10 million. Fitting out and furnishing the rooms and public spaces will occupy the third year and will cost a further 4 million. So basically, the biggest trick, or you could say the technicality of this question was, I'll come back to my answer, is usually your investment in NPV questions starts with year 0, right? and then the year 1 starts with the year of trading. In this case, in this scenario, in this question, the whole of the investment is divided into 3 years, right? So the purchase price of the block is paid now. So now is year 0. So I'm divided the investment years into 2 years. We have number of years and then we have the trading year, right? So the trading year is again year 0 because you haven't started your operational activities yet. But the actual years is year 0, 1, 2, 3. So your investment is actually divided into 3 years, which is the biggest technicality and technical part of this question, which students failed to understand. What they thought was that the year 0 was the year of investment, which was 40,000, and then what they did was the other 3 outflows that they took was a part of the year of trading, which was something that was wrong apparently, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first fulfill my years of the actual years. So year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, and because this is Excel, so I'm just going to drag it down. So in actually factually the whole of it has taken 12 years, right? But if we come to the actual trading year, our investment was spread over a total of 3 years. So year 0 was 40,000, and then we the investment of planning and detailed design work occupied the second year. So I've added 2,000 here. The question is done in thousands. I've used, as you can see, I've written it on top. And then installing the major services occupied the second year. So 2 million second year. So I've done 2,000. I'm going to do the question in thousands. 40 million was the year 0. And then we have installing all major services will occupy the second year, which will cost 10 million. So 10 million was the second year. And then we have the furnishing of the rooms will cost a further 4 million. So if you could see here that this all from 40 million to 4 million is the whole is the investment. So I'm going to highlight it for you guys so you can easily identify. So this was done over a span of 3 years, but there was still no trading done in these years. So your total investment was 56,000. So that's how I've divided it here, right? Okay. So for financial accounting purposes, the value of the site will be assumed to be 8 million and the building 32 million. So the land value is 8 million and the building is 32 million. They've done this why? Because if we're going to calculate the depreciation, which is always this next point in NPV questions, so land is not depreciated, as you all know. So we're going to depreciate only the building. So the building and the subsequent design work will be depreciated on a straight line basis over 50 years, the major services over 20 years, the furniture and fittings over 10 years, and the value of the site will not be depreciated, which is the land. Asset depreciation will start in the first year of trading. So now look at the difference between the word trading here and here there was no trading. This was the second year of cost. So that is where your key scenario is. That is where your key your method is, that your depreciation will be charged on the first year of trading. So as you can see, I've made the first year of trading here, which is actually the 4th year of the actual years, right? Okay, I'm going to stop here. Why? Because let's start with the question now. Now, in management accounting, the beauty of the questions and the beauty of the examiner, I can say is, I don't think you might agree, but remember, the examiner never creates a jigsaw, the examiner never puzzle you in the question. So it gives you the questions according to the data or the what we can say case study. So if the first 3 paragraphs is about investment and depreciation, so the first question was about depreciation. And if the further paragraphs are about operations, then the second, third question will be about operations. So basically in management accounting, the first question is always based either on the first paragraph or a second paragraph. the examiner will never jumble up the questions according to the case study. Like, it will not ask you the NPV first and depreciation later on, right? Or the ARR first and the depreciation later on, because honestly it doesn't make sense. And secondly, it's not going to jumble up the questions for you. It's not going to involve so many technicalities or tricks to the question at that level, right? So the first question relates to annual depreciation charge and the projected written down value, which is the net book value at the end of 10 years of trading. So let's go to that. So I've made a table here. So we have cost, depreciation, accumulated depreciation, and net book value after 10 years. So I'm going to look at building first, right? So a building was 32 million, and subsequent design work, these two are depreciated together over 50 years. So I'm going to add them both up. If you could see my formula here, so 32 million was building and 2 million was the service cost, right? So the depreciation formula I've added here is 34 divided by 50. So this is an annual depreciation accumulated for 10 years, multiply by 10 years, and then the net book value is 34, which was the cost, minus accumulated depreciation, give you a net book value after 10 years. I did similar things with major services. Sorry, that was design work and building. So my bad, let me write it out. Building plus design work, so that it's more clear when you guys go through this on your own. So major services again was 10 million. If you could see it, I've written it down here as well. And its depreciation was based over 20 years. So 10 divided by 20 is 0.5. All the formulas are here in the key bar area of Excel. So it's a good thing that we're doing everything on Excel. It makes your Excel skills strong as well. So accumulated depreciation multiplying by 10, and then the same thing is we did with building and design work is what we did here. So now we have the total net book value of the total investment after 10 years comes about to 32.2. And if you could see that, I'm going to add again the sum here just to show it to you, was 48. And if I add land here, land was of 8 million. So the total cost with land comes about to 56 million, is exactly what I showed here, right? So we are done with the first part. Then it says for the 4 years of preparation, preparation is your investment, and the first 10 years of trading. So I've divided the trading into first 10 years. That's why I did it like this. So this is your preparatory period and this is your trading period. Calculate the net operating cash flow and the net operating profit. Do remember again the difference that cash flow does not include non-cash expenses and the profit does, right? So now we're going to, now that we know that we have to calculate the cash flows and the profit, we're going to read forward. So Copland recognized that it takes some time for a new development to build up to its maximum usage. It expects to achieve 50% room occupancy in year 1, 60% in year 2, 70% in year 3, 80% in year, and so forth, right? So they've given us room occupancy, and again going back, that is why they gave us the 200 room hotel. So out of the 200 room hotel, we know that the whole of year 1, there's going to be a 50% room occupancy. And that is going to be applied to the revenue and to the cost, variable cost most probably appropriately. So the director projects that each room occupied will bring in $400 per night, 365 days per year. So they've given it to you. If in case they haven't given it to you, you can use 365 on your own. And in case of weeks, I've already told you that you use 52 weeks per year, right? This includes the room charge, meals, drinks, etc. And the costs, variable costs. So this was your 400 per night was your revenue, and your variable cost will be 50% of this amount. He estimates that the fixed operating cost excluding depreciation. So these are some key things that have been told by the examiner to us, which needs to be highlighted. That is important to follow. What a lot of students did in this question was that they actually forgot the fixed operating costs, and they just calculate the contribution, and then that's the answer they gave, which was a very big mistake and a blunder on their part. So you need to read through the whole question and highlight the areas that are important. So I'm going to highlight this as well, because this has been written at the end of the paragraph, which students, because you're short of time, so you just forget to apply it in when you're hurrying. He is aware that there is additional income to be earned from hosting conferences, dinners, this. However, he is not familiar with the local market and prefers to make his initial evaluation of business without projecting any income from these sources. So, because he needs to evaluate it, so the whole thing is about evaluation, which is again investment technique. That's what we are doing for the company. All right, so the second part of 4 marks is we're going to quickly calculate the contribution. So the contribution is calculated on, I'm going to do it again with you. So the contribution is, it's a 200 room hotel into the first year of trading, wants is occupying, there's a 50% occupancy. So I'm going to do 50% into 400 is your revenue. So in the brackets minus 200, because obviously it's a 50% variable cost. So if 400 is the revenue, 200 will be the variable cost. So your contribution per year contribution per room is 200 in any case, but I've calculated it for you here into 365, which is the number of days, right? So if I press enter, it gives me 7.3 million, and because all of my question is in a 1000 form, so I'm going to divide it by 1000 to get 7300, right? So I'm going to do the same thing, same calculation. The only difference is I'm going to keep changing the year of the room occupancy percentage is the usage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy it across the whole year, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep changing, because it's Excel and Excel is lovely. I'm going to keep changing the percentage. So the second was 60%, the third year was 70%, if I'm correct, 70% in year 3, 80% in year 4. So year 4 is 80%. So I'm going to put 80% here in year 4, and it says and 90% thereafter. Thereafter means after 5 years and including 5 years, the occupancy is 80%. So I'm going to just copy the occupancy of 90%. There you go. So this is your contribution in thousands. Then you have your fixed cost, which is again, it's an operating cost which excludes depreciation. So because it doesn't have a non-cash expense, it's an operating cost. So contribution minus fixed cost, it's 4 million per annum, as it says here. So you get your net cash flow, which is the formula is your contribution minus your fixed cost gives you your net cash flow, right? And so we've done one part of the question. The second says to calculate the net operating profit. So NCF is cash flow, NP is net profit. You can use these abbreviations in accounting, you all know that. So the depreciation is what we've calculated here. So the annual depreciation is, I'm going to sum it, we've already done the calculation, is 15.8. So I'm going to multiply it by 1000 as I've done it. Oh, sorry, this was accumulated depreciation, my bad. This is the depreciation, annual depreciation that we have. So multiplying it by 1000, we get 1.580, and then if we reduce it, if the net cash flow minus depreciation gives you net profit, as I've explained it here, all cash flows minus non-cash expenses is your profit. So this is what we've calculated up till now. So this was the key problem area of your question, that students were unable to calculate the cash flows and the net cash flow and the net profit. Why? Because they got confused between the years of preparation and the years of trading. So the whole reason behind me doing this question with you was to actually explain to you how we're going to differentiate the both, right? So, okay, coming on to calculate the approximate payback period of the investment in years from the start of trading. Obviously, the payback period starts here. Now, the key to payback period is to calculate a cumulative net cash flow, right? You all know that. I'm going to do it again with you. So let me insert it here. So let me just add a cumulative net cash flow figure, right? So we all know that our investment is a 56,000 cash outflow, and we all know this is net cash inflow, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a cumulative cash flow. A cumulative cash flow means that I'm going to add the cash flow at every time period to see when my investment will be returned. So now that we've reached 49,000, I think we're right about near 56,000. So I'm going to stop here. So somewhere between the 7th year of trading, remember the question asked in year of trading. I'm going to highlight it again. So it has to be from the start of the year of trading, not the actual years. This is also one of the key problems that the student have with the that the examiners mentioned, and that I saw when you guys did the question on your own, and I gave this question in the midterm as well. A lot of you started the question and left it off. So the main reason was that it was technicality was all on the number of years and the trading years. That's all that the examiner did here, right? Okay, so it was somewhere between the 7th and I think I've missed a year here somehow, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, my bad, 9 and 10. I'm going to add a year here. I just skipped it, but it's okay, not an issue. It's same, it's the same, it's the same, again it's the same, and it's the same. Thank God for that. Alright, so somewhere between the 7th and the 8th year is when we're going to gain our investment back. So the key to calculate the payback period is, also a lot of you students forget the exact calculation of payback. So I'm going to do it here again with you. So payback period states that you're going to calculate how much you need from 58,000 to fulfill, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to do 58,000 minus 56,000. So you need 2520 more, right, to fulfill your investment. So you need this out of the net cash flow, which is 9140. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide 2520 divided by 9140. So what I'm going to do is this divided by, sorry, my bad, 9140, because we need this much amount from 9140, not from this. This is our cumulative net cash flow. So we need only my bad, sorry, let me repeat it again. I got confused as well. So we achieved 49,000 here. Let me just highlight it, it's easier to understand. And we need 56,000, right? So how much do we need more is 56,000 minus 4938. So we need 6620, and this is what we need from this area, right? Because this is the next cash flow. So we are going to divide 6620 divided by 9140, which gives us 0.7. I'm going to just round it off a bit, 0.72. So this is the number of years given to us. So if we multiply it by 12, we get the exact months at which we get our payback, right? So our total payback is 7 years and 8.7 months. So technically, we can go 8.7 months. So this is our payback period. So that means that if our payback is within the 10-year cycle, that means that we're going to recover our investment within our 10 years of trading cycle, which is a good thing. But if we could have earned our payback period earlier, that would have been even better. So since our payback lies within the trading, that means that our overall NPV will also be positive, and our accounting rate of return might be better than the cost of capital. So a payback period actually gives us the clue to what our future answers of ARR and NPV would be, right? So this is the that is why it is one of the most used methods even in practical life, because it is the most simplistic method, and it gives you an idea what your NPV and your discounting IRR and your accounting rate of return might be, right? All right, so what I'm going to do is now I'm going to leave it at that point. I want you guys to do the accounting rate of return and NPV yourself. Do remember that the whole of the working has already been done. You now need accounting rate of return over the 10 years of trading is simple. You already have the net profit divided by 10, get the average profits. You already have the investment at the beginning of the period, right? You can divide it by 2 to get the average investment. Since they've not given us they've not given us any residual value right now, so your ARR will be based on this formula. Then it says your cost of capital, that your discount rate is at 10%. Calculate the NPV after the 10 years of trading, because you have, this is your year 0 of trading, so your discount factor will be, so let's see, they've given you the discount factor from 1 year to year 14, right? So which means that your NPV, calculate the NPV after the 10 years of trading. You should assume that the written down value calculated in A above that we calculated is credited in year 14 of the cash flow. That means that your written down value becomes your residual value, and you achieve that in year 14 of the cash flow. So year 14 is your year of cash flow. So let me write it down as year of cash flow, right? So there you are. So we have the 13 here. So it's inclusive of 0. So you have 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So because we've put 0 here, but if you include it, it becomes 14 years of cash flow, and you have 10 years of trading here, right? So I'm going to leave that on you guys. I want you guys to try and attempt it now, since we have the whole of the table in front of you, and I've also calculated the payback period for you guys. I want you guys to try and attempt D and E part, and then I can see how much clarity you have in this concept now, right? I hope this tutorial helped you. I hope that the calculations that I did was understandable, and I hope doing it on Excel was easier for you to understand. And if you could see how I've used the Excel, I've used different formulas. So I want this tutorial to be a two-way message for you guys right now. Number one, the tutorial will help you to understand the concept. Number two, doing it on Excel, please focus on the formulas I've used. I've not stressed on it, obviously, because it's too much to understand in one go, but try and understand the formulas, the basic formulas that I've used, so that you can apply it on your Excel as well. So what I want you guys to do is that could you please solve these two questions, the answer to these two questions on Excel, not on a piece of paper, on Excel, and send it my way. I'm going to share my obviously the video recording and the whole table and the Excel sheet with you. This is why I've made it. I've made a whole Mac Excel sheet separately of every area, and this is the key area that we've been doing, because divisional performance, as you can see the different tabs I've made here, the areas that we've done so far are the key areas that I think will be tested in the exam. So I wanted to recap all of it to you guys and do a question with you guys, so that you can actually feel comfortable in attempting a question regarding divisional performance, transfer pricing, EVA, NPV, and IRR. Also, I've stated in my previous tutorials when we did divisional performance and transfer pricing, that the examiner loves to mix all of this together. So in this question, we did not see any ROI or RI, but trust me, the examiner can mix up the divisional performance with NPV and IRR, which is another question that I want you to attempt as an assignment. So the question is of paper. So I'm going to close this paper right now. I'm going to save it. So the question that I want you to attempt is of 2017, Zone A, which actually merges all these concepts together, which is pretty interesting, but the question is pretty simple. So I want you to do it as well. Sorry, let me find the question. Okay, it's not here. Not 2017, I think it's 2016. Let's go back to 2016. I think here it is. Yes, Cerebus PLC. So it's 2016, Zone A, question number 2. So I want you to do Cerebus PLC as an assignment. So let's discuss it a little bit, what the question says. So if you could go to the question, calculate the residual income for the company of each year of forecast before consideration of the new product. Calculate and present on a year-to-year basis the life cycle and calculate the residual income for Jupiter Clean for each year of its life and the total residual income. So the two parts on our residual income. Now look at what they've done. They've merged divisional performance ratios, key financial ratios with NPV. So calculate the NPV of the Jupiter Clean life cycle using 12% cost of capital in the 4 years that they've given you the discount factor as well. So trust me, the examiner can play around with questions as it's done here. So I want you to do this as an assignment and then we can discuss this in our next lecture, right? Okay guys, thank you so much for listening to me and for absorbing each and every word I've been saying throughout. I know this is a very difficult time for you guys as well, since obviously we're all stuck at home. But I totally understand that it's a time that we're going to resolve all the queries. We're in it together. So I'm here. I'm available for you, all of you. And if you have any queries, I'm just a message or a WhatsApp away. We have our live sessions on Google Hangout, so I'm pretty sure that you're very comfortable with our live sessions as well. But I've made these tutorials for you so that you can go back onto my tutorials and actually understand what the concept that I shared in my live sessions with you were. So it becomes helpful that you've understood, you've taken my live sessions, and then when you listen to these tutorials, you will understand and grasp the concepts even better, right? So I think that's about it. I wish you all the best in your examination, and we will be do remember that the practice in management accounting, practice is the key to passing, right? I've made you talk to your seniors who scored very well in management accounting, like Huzefa. We had Huzefa, we had Asher. Asher scored a distinction in management accounting last year. So since I've introduced these students to you, I would suggest that you message these students and ask them what were the key takeaways of management accounting that led them to score a distinction in this paper. So Asher, Mahmood and Huzefa were both distinction holders in management accounting, and you can take help from them as well. They're good students, and you can always, obviously, always message me whatever problems that you're facing, and we can resolve them in our live class sessions or on a one-to-one basis, whatever is suitable to you. Thank you so much, and I will see you in my next class.